Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it's Rei-Lin, and today I'm bringing you something a little bit different. This is Revelation Online, a new Asian MMO that's being published by My.com in America and in Europe. Developed by Chinese developer NetEase, and it's been around for a little while. It's been in development for quite a while, and it's finally making its way over to America and Europe. I got to play in the closed beta 2 that they just had in December, and I just wanted to give you some impressions and show you a little bit of footage from the game because the market for Asian MMOs is pretty big. There's tons of them out there. Most of them are free to play, and you either love them or you hate them, or you have a love-hate relationship like me. There are a lot of Asian MMOs that I really enjoyed. Blade and Soul being, the first and foremost. I still really love Blade and Soul. Graphic-wise, play style, I just love everything about it. I thought it was probably one of the best Asian MMOs I've ever played. But I've also played a few others. TERA Online was also one. Ion from a few years ago. And all of them had, very good things about them, but they all tend to peter out within a couple of months because you get to the level cap and there's very little content, or there's very little PvE, and most of it turns into either a PvP slugfest, or there's a lot of unbalancing between the classes and things like that. So generally, Asian MMOs have a very specific audience, and that's just how they go. We've had a few that have come out just in 2016, like Black Desert Online, and a lot of people really liked it. Graphically, it was a very impressive game, but again, it petered out on me within just a few weeks because I just didn't like the gameplay. And now here comes another MMO from Asia. Here we go with Revelation Online. I spent probably the whole time that the closed beta 2 was up playing this game, and I thought it was very well done. As you can see by just how the camera is flying through, these are in-game graphics. This is just the cameraman flying around through the maps. That the game looks very good, just like every other Korean or Chinese MMO that you've probably seen on the market. They all tend to look very good, and this one I really think does look amazing. It does have night and day cycles. They kind of hint to some of that here as you watch the fly-throughs. But it's also it's got this, I want to say, style to it that I haven't seen before. It's almost like a photorealistic style in some aspects, especially if you can crank the graphics all the way up. And even cranking the graphics all the way up, my machine never really felt like it was chugging to display some of this stuff. I have a lot of trouble, like in World of Warcraft. If I crank all the settings up, it still doesn't give me like 60 frames per second, even with my monster machine. But this game did very well, even with everything maxed out, including view distance and the number of players that I could see at a time in an area. And I really didn't have any major frame issues at all while playing the game. It was very well done. The different maps are very beautiful to look at with the night and day cycles and the lighting effects. There are a few places, like I said, that it almost seems photorealistic in the forest with the trees and things like that. Now, of course, that is kind of like the standard with most, like I said, Asian MMOs, is to make them look very pretty because they want to draw people in with their style and their artwork and stuff. And the classes and whatnot tend to come secondary to the graphics, just because that's how I've always perceived them. That's how they always felt to me. In a lot of ways, this is a little bit the same and a little bit different. They do have all the graphic powerhouse here, as you can see. That's what they're showcasing first and foremost, but I think it really does have some very good gameplay. Now, if any one of you out there have played TERA Online, the gameplay will feel very similar to that because it is, in essence, a slightly modified version of TERA Online. You can tab target and lock on, or you can do it similar to the way TERA Online does it, where you're kind of like, as you can see here, you're just sort of got a cursor on your screen and you're aiming that cursor where you want your stuff to go. So it does have this fuzzy kind of lock-on system, or you can use your tab and definitely lock onto the target. This is one of the dungeons early on that you can do, and if it looks like it's sort of really easy, that's because I'm over leveled for it. I took my time going through the game, doing a lot of quests, doing a lot of unnecessary things apparently, and by the time I got to the point where I could run this dungeon for my story, I was 4 or 5 levels higher. Now that is something that I do enjoy about a lot of MMOs that isn't always standard. There are MMOs out there like say Guild Wars 2 that will, instead of adding lots and lots of new content, they keep all the content relevant by de-leveling you down to whatever level range a dungeon or an area would be. That's not the case with Revelation. Here I am, I'm actually over-leveled for the dungeon, so most of these monsters really can't kill me in any way, shape, or form. They would eventually if I just stood there in the middle of this pack, but as you can see, I'm taking very little damage from their attacks, and I'm doing a lot of damage to them. And yeah, that's kind of, you could say, boring. It's not much of a challenge, but like I said, I didn't plan for this to happen. There are several difficulties that you can put these dungeons on that you will definitely need a group for. The harder and then hell mode that they had, you're going to need people to help you. You're going to need a healer. You're going to need a tank. And that's the next step I should talk about. What you're seeing here for the class is the gunslinger. Very high mobility, very high single target damage, not so good in AoE situations. The classes are very different from each other. They all fill very specific roles. Like the Vanguard is your tank, the Gunslinger is your single target DPS, and things like that. So you need to be able to pick the character based on what you want your role to be. This isn't going to be like World of Warcraft, for example, where you could pick a paladin and be a tank, a healer, or a DPS. This is very specifically catering to, the holy trio. You got tank, you got DPS, you have ranged DPS, and you have a healer. And you are kind of stuck in those modes. So don't go into this thinking, well, I'm going to be a gunslinger, I can be a ranged DPS, or I can switch to this other spec and I can sort of off-heal. That's just not how it works. Everyone is very specifically playing the class that they want because they want to fill a very specific role for their group. And, I'm a solo player, and I've wanted a gunslinger type of character, some kind of gunner, just to see how it is. So when I saw that was an option in this game, that was the main thing that kind of drew me in. That was a boss fight. As you can see, he was pretty easy, and a lot of the mechanics of these fights are just like they are in TERA Online. It's stay out of the red crap, and you have a dodge, and you can see right in the middle of my screen at the bottom is a blue bar. It's at 100, and every time you dodge, you lose some of what I call stamina. I think they call it levity. But basically, if you're at 0, you can't dodge, so that refills over time and allows you to, dodge the stuff on the ground. Now, in the harder modes, that stuff on the ground, the red lines and things that you see lighting up right now, don't appear. So right now, it's kind of like I'm in the easy mode. I'm getting the training wheels. It's showing me exactly where I don't need to stand, exactly where I need to be to not take damage. In the harder modes, that goes away. And also the bosses gain much higher hit points and armor and, new tactics. Like this guy gains like a berserker rush, where he just rushes across the ground, swinging wildly at whatever happens to be in front of him. Now I'm sure there's another difficulty above what I was able to do, so even at that difficulty, he'll probably do something else completely different. Now you can see him slamming the ground there. I'm supposed to jump, but again, this was only my second time through this dungeon, and I was screwing it up pretty bad. But even screwing it up, you can see I didn't take all of that much damage, and he surely didn't kill me. Of course, when you kill the end boss, you get this little screen, and it kind of adds up how you did in your group. If there were more people, you'd see their statistics as well. And depending on how well you do, you can get 1 to 4 different chances to open these boxes. I've gotten up to 2. I've seen somebody get 3. I'm not sure what all the rules are for it, but it allows you to gear up very quickly, especially if you do multiple runs. It does have a loot system similar to WoW used to be, where like this, you open a chest and you get a bunch of random loot, and some of it's for you, some of it's not for you. And that's just kind of how the dungeon works in general. Now this is another feature, and I've seen them in other Asian MMOs like this. It's an auto-pathing feature. Say you've got a quest and you have no idea who that quest is for, who you're turning it in, where it is. You click on their name and you will literally run straight to the NPC that you need to talk to, and it will automatically start the dialogue with them. So if there was a bunch of people crowding the NPC, yeah, you won't have to worry about that. It includes ground mounts. As you can see, I'm on a horse, and if the distance is too great, I'll hop on my horse and it'll run me there. And right there was a teleporter. It'll actually use the teleporters for you as well. So it will do everything it can to get you to the NPC. And I never had a problem with it getting stuck or running me somewhere that I shouldn't be. And of course, another thing that they have in the game is wings. Everybody gets wings, and there are tons of wings and types of wings, and bat wings, devil wings, white feathers, black feathers, fire. There's all kinds of really interesting little things that they've added and pulled from other MMOs. And the wings I immediately recognize as coming from Ion, and maybe a few other MMOs that I don't know about. But overall, I think Revelation Online doesn't necessarily break new ground, as far as MMOs go. But what it does is it is a refreshing change of pace from a lot of the other MMOs that have been out there that are free to play, like Fly for Fun or, TERA Online. It's not exactly new, but it's not exactly old, and it looks really good. It plays really well. And there are a lot of other subsystems that I didn't have any way that I could get into, because a lot of it still was not translated into English. So knowing exactly what settings to put on my graphics and all of that, I was just basically putting everything to max, and I had no idea what I could turn on or off. So there are a lot of other things. There's professions in the game. There's different paths for the professions. There's even a marriage system that goes all the way to doing paperwork and having gifts and a reception, and it's insane how much is actually in the game besides just PvE and dungeon runs and stuff like that. There's also huge scale PvP, 1-on-1, 3-on-3 arenas, guild versus guild wars, castle sieges, open world PvP. Now, how well it does in the US, I'm not sure. I know reading about the PvP on the Chinese servers is that the classes are all very balanced against each other, so making arena teams is actually fairly straightforward. It's fairly simplistic when it comes to the balance, because everyone, like I said, has a very distinct role. You're not going to find the Vanguard doing tons and tons of DPS over, like, say, a gunslinger, for example. So you pick your role, you decide what you want to do, and you're going to be stuck with that role. But each character can then focus very specifically on that role, which is something I think that a lot of MMOs don't necessarily do. They kind of try to blend the edges between the classes a little bit, so everyone sort of kind of puts their foot in different pools at once. But this is very much a lockdown to the class and your role sort of MMO. Anyway, I just wanted to let you all know with a little preview here about Revelation Online. The closed beta 2 ended on January 3rd, so you can no longer get into that, obviously. There's no ETA on when the closed beta 3 will be happening. Supposedly, everything is translated now into English, and supposedly when we get into the third closed beta test, we won't have to worry about not understanding any of the dialogue in the quests or in the menus and whatnot. Hopefully that'll be exactly right, and I can even do another preview and let you know how the game is coming along. So far, I like what I see, but as always, it's an Asian MMO, so I'm going to be taking baby steps on whether or not it's a long-term investment-worthy type of game. I just wanted to let you all know it's coming and see what your thoughts and comments are. If you got to play it, let me know down in the comments. Give me your opinion. Tell me what you think, what you like, what you dislike. Just get some conversation going. Anyway, that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please press the like button down below. It really does help out my channel. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe to my channel, you can click at the bottom of your screen right now, and that'll get you every update every time I upload something to YouTube. Take care, everyone, and I'll talk to you all next time.